Ironical twist.
In Indonesia, it's the national craft. I never learned how to do batik in my own country because there, the work was mostly done as in the villages as a cottage industry. And so it was mostly the village people that did it. And the tik, the word T-I-K, comes from the Indonesian word titik, which means dot. Because originally, like in Indonesia, they judge the quality of batik by the amount of dots that's put on the material.
The medium is batik, a process of selectively coating fabric with hot wax, which creates images by resisting dyes from penetrating the material.
I learned to do batik when I first arrived in Hawaii at the Bishop Museum. But it took me about a year before I really developed my own style, because first it was just a process.
The batik process begins by applying hot wax to a piece of 100% linen. Yvonne has sketched her composition in with charcoal.
The wax is a mixture of about 1/3 of beeswax to 2/3 of paraffin, which is kept at a steady temperature of about 250 degrees in an old electric fryer.
She applies the wax in areas that she wants to keep white.
I work on larger canvases or larger areas because I like to have the freedom of the movement because there's so much happening. First of all, I want the figure in there, which in itself is a large object. Then I want the textile, the fabric, and I want to bring in the patterns. And if you all do it in a smaller space, it just gets too complicated because on top of that, I also want the peace and restfulness in it.
After the initial waxing is completed, Yvonne prepares her dyes. They are photosensitive and will turn color when exposed to sunlight. Because she feels most comfortable drawing the female figure, Yvonne chooses to portray Hawaiian women.
I always liked the massive physical appearance of the Hawaiian women. They have a certain presence. And if you really look at them, despite the fact that they're big, they have an infinite grace to them. Their movement, they don't look heavy in moving. You know, they sort of kind of glide. And that's why I saw the beauty.
Yvonne positions detailed patterns in contradiction to massive figures as an integral element of her compositions.
If you have a composition, and if you really take that composition apart, there's always one element that is quite contrary than the rest of the composition. And it's almost to the point sometimes where it's quite imperfect. But because this imperfect piece, because of it being in the composition, that's what makes the whole composition perfect. I think it's part of my philosophy of life. In life, you need imperfect things to make the overall thing perfect, to make life perfect, because otherwise you don't have anything to compare it with. It's like you need to see white in order to realize what black is.
After the material has dried, Yvonne will reapply the wax, selecting the areas where she wants the first dye color to remain. It may take a day to complete this step. Then she will coat it again with another hue of color. Each piece will receive 8 to 12 coats of wax and dye.
The parts that never get wax, they will receive all the amount of dyes, and therefore they're the darkest tone in the finished batik. The lighter ones are the first dyes applied, so you work from light to dark. The problem with batik is there's no way where you can erase it. So once the process starts, you just have to keep on going. Now in my case, all the colors on the batik are related, which means that I keep applying the dye over the whole batik. And where they overlap, they will change into another color. So not only do I apply, for example, blue as a second dye over the batik, but where the blue mixes with the beige of the first dye, you will kind of get a grayish blue.
When the dyeing process is finished, Yvonne will iron the wax out of the material, and the image will soon be ready for framing.
What I liked about batik is there's always that element of surprise. No matter how much you try to control, but there's always something that can go wrong, and sometimes it goes wrong to your benefit. It teaches you to kind of let go and let, in quote, fate take over to a certain point. There is never really the total control of the human hand in there.
As an artist, Yvonne is exploring other media beyond batik.
I seem to have all these split personalities in me. And it's satisfying because I can, in different media, you can kind of gratify whatever impulses you have, I have. And eventually, I don't know where this is all going to lead. I really like doing the other media. And although right now people know me by Yvonne Chang, the batik artist, eventually I would like people to say just Yvonne Chang, the artist, and leaving the batik as part of my art, but not the total art that I do.
To many, the world of fashion photography has a mystical appeal that prompts one to pause, perhaps to reflect upon the many personal possibilities of such an adventure, if only one were involved. To those who are involved in capturing and framing images for the print media, the business of fashion photography is hard work, but not without rewards. Honolulu-based photographer Rick Noyle is one of Hawaii's best fashion photographers.
Well, I don't really have my own style as such, that I've never really thought of my own style. I think that if I had to go into that, I think that I try to adopt a style that would suit the client's needs. Unlike, there are some photographers who do extremely well, who stick with their own style. They become known as that type of lighting expert or that type of photographer. Whereas mine, I'm more a generalist. And I always say to people, I'm a specialist. I specialize in making $1, if you know what I mean. I cannot do any one thing in Hawaii like a photographer in California or New York. I cannot say I only shoot hands. The photographer in New York who shoots pies, that never gets a chance to shoot a cake, because that's his style. He does that one thing. Whereas in Hawaii, we cannot do that. I shoot aerials, I shoot interiors, I do a tremendous amount of fashion, I do a good share of product photography. And the three things that I don't like to shoot is weddings, puppies, and babies. And as long as I can stay away from those three, I can shoot practically anything else that we can put light on. Today we'll be shooting all the things that we can to give the illusion and the imagery of red.
Joining Rick on the creative team are Amos Kotomori, internationally famed makeup, hairstylist, and garment designer. Also, RSVP Magazine art director Fred Rainey and co-worker Devon Gard, who is the magazine's fashion editor.
As a team for us with Amos Kotomori, Amos is our stylist, he has the ability to make me look good. Actually, they all make me look good, which is hell of a nice for me, but Amos has got the ability to be able to put together the makeup, stylize the shot, and help me create a mood in the shot. And I think that's probably the most important image result that one could wish for. If you create a mood that other people looking at it can get a sense or feeling whatever the mood was meant to be, that to me is like a total achievement to be able to have that happen. Amos's styling and makeup are second to none.
I started doing this because I'm a textile designer by trade, and I started off doing that, then I started doing my own fashion shows. And along with that, I started creating my own look that I wanted the mannequins or models to have, which was makeup and hair. And some people started noticing that there was a different look to my shows, and I started doing that. They started asking me if I would be willing to consider coming on shoots as their stylist, and I didn't quite understand what it meant, and I've been doing it for a number of years now, and I enjoy it. It sort of rounds out the designing field for me.
as art director, I am finally responsible for how everything comes out, but working with a group
everybody else, but in the last 5 years of my business operation here, I found that we have been able to close that gap of us being behind the market. We're right in the middle of the Pacific with Japan out there, and the Japanese are coming over here, and now we also have a lot of people coming from New York City, California, coming to Hawaii, and our models are holding their own. It doesn't always happen that way, which is, I think, that for our industry very frustrating, where they bring a couple of girls from, say, LA just to come and shoot a catalog where they could have used a couple of the girls locally. But fortunately, it's becoming less and less that is happening, and I'm hoping that that's going to be a trend, that we see the people on the mainland acknowledging that there is a certain amount of talent in Hawaii, and that we don't walk around in short pants and go out with hula girls. If we produce images that other people will look at and say, hey, I'd like to advertise in that magazine, then ultimately we are succeeding. If we have fun on the way doing it, that's our benefit. And that's really what it comes down to.
The Honolulu Zoo can offer us comic relief if we turn our attention from our daily affairs to those of the animal kingdom. Dr. Ricardo Tremillos is professor in ethnomusicology and head of the ethnomusicology section of the music department at the University of Hawaii in Honolulu. In his quest for knowledge of the various ethnic musical influences of the Pacific Basin, Dr. Tremillos has journeyed worldwide and is highly respected for his academic contributions as well as his musical performance.
The music department at the University of Hawaii is the only state music department, so that we have to service a number of different areas of music, including music education, composition, and then the more research-oriented areas such as music history and music theory, as well as ethnomusicology. So that ethnomusicology as an area in the music department is one of, I suppose you would consider, 5 major areas. The music department here at Hawaii is known internationally for its ethnomusicology section, not only because of the research and the publications that we've put out, but also because we are in the Pacific area and part of a very large multicultural community. Many other departments on the mainland use a kind of laboratory technique where they bring in people from other places. We don't have to. We can just walk out on the street and there they are. The uniqueness of the ethnomusicology program at Hawaii has attracted a number of international students, and one of them is Andrew Killick. He is actually a concert pianist from England who studied both in England and France, also became interested in the larger context of music, heard about the program here at Hawaii, and joined us just this last semester. He is studying Japanese music and has concentrated on learning shakuhachi, the end-blown bamboo flute. This is a set of gongs from the southern Philippines, and the instrument is called kulintang. The southern Philippines is a Muslim area, unlike the rest of the Philippines, which is Christian. And so this ensemble is used for festivals to accompany wedding celebrations and also for dance. The piece we're going to play is called Ulan Ulan, which means a little rain, and it's supposed to sound like rain on a roof. This is a Japanese koto, which is a 13-string zither, and the music that is normally played comes from the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. However, in modern times, this instrument has also been used as a medium for contemporary or avant-garde composition, so that there's both a modern repertoire for it as well as the so-called classical repertoire. Ethnomusicology at the University of Hawaii is in a very unique position for a number of reasons. First of all, because we are ourselves in a multi-ethnic community with a number of immigrant populations who are looking for some kind of validation of their own cultural material. And the university here, through teaching all kinds of music, does that. In many universities and music schools, for instance, the only thing that you learn about is the Western classical tradition. The Western classical tradition in Hawaii is as foreign as Korean music, for example, so that it has to be taught differently here, and it is just one of a number of other musics which are interesting, creative, and certainly part of our culture.
Mm.